Hey class, today we're going to talk a little bit about congressional leadership. I know the events of the past couple months have certainly caused the idea of having Congress and leadership to be something of an oxymoron, but we're going to take our best stab at it, right? We're going to talk about the House leadership, both its ceremonial and practical aspects, and its structure. There's a structure to the leadership of the chamber. And then we're going to talk about the Senate. And the U.S. Senate is kind of a different animal in part because there's a distinction between its ceremonial or constitutional leadership and then the actual practical political leadership. What you're going to find is that the structure of both chambers is virtually the same. There's very little difference between the way the leadership is structured. Okay, there is a great deal of difference in how the leadership works in each chamber, considering what we learned about on Friday, which is this whole idea of the House being the chamber of majority power, where majority rules and that's it. And consequently, you have a lot of institutional power in the party and the majority rule, versus the Senate, which is much more driven by the individual senators themselves, where the individuals have so much more power. Okay, so I want to make that connection up front between the leadership structures in each chamber. We're going to start with the House of Representatives, and the natural starting off point there is the Speaker of the House. Okay, the presiding officer of the House is the Speaker. Okay, so that means the Speaker of the House has certain institutional obligations separate and apart from being the political leader of one of the two caucuses, one of the either the Republicans or the Democrats. Okay, the position of Speaker of the House is a constitutionally provided one. It is part. He or she is a constitutional officer, and as such, the Speaker of the House actually plays a really important role in the succession in the event that the president is rendered either incapable or unable to govern and to discharge his or her offices, then the vice president would take over. Well, if the vice president, if that position is either vacant or if they are incapable or unable to carry out the offices and duties of the presidency, the next person in line of succession is the Speaker of the House. And that's provided for in the Constitution. Now, the powers of the Speaker of the House is that they are the leader of the majority party of that chamber. All right? They outrank the majority leader of the party. As the presiding officer, they've got these duties that propel them above the political leader, the majority leader. So in a very real sense, the Speaker of the House is both the presiding officer and the leader of the majority party. Okay, they control the debate on the House floor. All right, they're the ones, the Speaker, the office of the Speaker, the position of Speaker, controls the flow of debate. They recognize who gets to speak. They make ruling on make the rulings on the procedures of the House. The parliamentarian rules are all interpreted by the Speaker. Now, arguably most important in the House of Representatives is that the Speaker chooses 9 of the 13 members of the Rules Committee. And now we're going to talk about the Rules Committee as well as all the other committees in class next week. But I want you guys to be aware of that. The Rules Committee, 9 of 13 members are put there by the Speaker of the House. Okay. Now, there's other officers in the House Majority Party. Okay. The House Majority Party leadership also includes a majority leader who acts as the day-to-day leader of the party in the House of Representatives. The coordination of political strategy, a legislative floor strategy. Are we going to call this bill? Should we call that bill? Do we have the votes for it? These kind of political decisions are governed by the majority leader. Okay. Now, there's also, I mean, considering that you're in the House of Representatives, you want to make sure the House Majority Party, whether it's Democrats or Republicans, right now it's the Republicans, the Republicans want to make sure that they've got the votes in order to get something passed on the House floor. Okay, because otherwise it's a great embarrassment if they can't garner enough votes and they're in the majority of the House of Representatives. It's a great embarrassment if they can't pull it off. Now, thus, there are whips. Okay, whips, majority whips, assist the Speaker and the Majority Leader in coordinating the day-to-day operation. They're kind of like assistants. And their primary job is to count votes. They know their members. They speak with their members. They meet with them and say, hey, you really got to support the Speaker on this issue. You really need to remember they helped you during the campaign. They gave you that money, or they appeared with you at that fundraiser and raised all that. Well, you've got to give them your vote. You got to support them. Okay, and they cajole and make threats and make promises to bring the members together to vote for the agenda that the Speaker and the Majority Leader come up with. Okay, they put the votes. They corral their members and herd them in a direction to vote on particular issues. Okay, so for important floor votes, they have to persuade those legislators to support the bill. And these are members of their own political party, so chances are they agree on most of this stuff, but sometimes they don't. And it takes some arm twisting. That's what the whips do. Okay, so you have a Speaker of the House, presiding officer, who's the leader of the majority party. You have the Majority Leader, and then you have the whips. That's the majority party leadership. Now, shouldn't come as any surprise that the House Minority Party also has a leadership structure. Their head of their party in the minority is the Minority Leader. Okay, they lead the political minority party in the House of Representatives. Right now, that's the Democratic Party. One of the chief powers of the Minority Leader is that he or she gets to select 4 of the members of the Rules Committee. Remember, the Majority Party gets to select 9. The Minority Leader gets to select 4. Okay, so you can see there's a great disparity in the relative amounts of power that the Speaker has versus the Minority Leader. Now, the Minority Leader sets the party agenda and their message against the majority party. Does the Minority Leader really win a lot of votes or anything? No. But remember the functions of a political party. One of the functions of a political party is to govern, right? And the Speaker of the House and the Majority Leader and the whips use their powers to govern by passing legislation. What's one of the other functions of political parties? The watchdog effect, or the watchdog function. And this is one of the functions of the Minority Leader. They have a message they want to get out, and it's generally contrary to what the majority party has. Okay, so the Minority Leader will coordinate legislative strategy on the minority party on the House floor. Okay, now the House Minority Party also has whips. They assist the Minority Leader in the day-to-day operations and managing the support, lining up the support of the Minority Party for or against legislation. Okay? Now I got to take a break because my wife just got home and I got to say hello. Okay? So I'll be right back. And I'm back. Sorry about that. Okay, so where were we? The whips. They line up the support of the Minority Party, performing the same function as the Majority Party does in lining up the support of their membership against the bills or the legislation that's being offered up by the Majority Party. Now we switch over to the Senate, and it shouldn't come as any shock that the Senate has the identical structure as the House in terms of the Majority Leader, the Minority Leader, the whip structure. All of that is identical. Now there's a major exception, and I want to point that out right now. That's the President pro tempore. Okay, and this is pronounced President tempore, President pro tem, tomato, President pro tem. Okay, the highest ranking officer of the Senate, and this is a ceremonial position. They don't hold any additional authority except for that which inures to them as the elder statesman or elder stateswoman of the Senate. Okay, by tradition, they are the most senior tenured senator of the majority party. All right, they're the oldest, longest serving member of the Senate in the majority party. Okay, now that's a constitutional role. This position of President Pro Tem is a constitutional role. Just like the Speaker of the House is a constitutional role, so too is the President Pro Tem. They're second in succession after the Vice President and the Speaker of the House. So if the President is incapable, the Vice President is incapable, the Speaker of the House is incapable, then it falls to the President Pro Tem. Okay, what a great guy to have taking over the government, right? The oldest member of the majority party. Hey, that's the system we've got. Now, again, this is an honorary role. They're often the presiding officer of the Senate when the Vice President is not present. And quite frankly, the Vice President is never present in the U.S. Senate, except to break ties, tie votes. Okay, the Vice President is referred to as the President of the Senate. That's one of the few jobs that the Vice President actually has provided for them, besides waiting for the President to die. The Vice President is called the President of the Senate. They don't have the right to vote. They don't have a right to say anything except casting a tie-breaking vote. Consequently, they're never there. Now, the Senate majority officers are just like the Senate, just like the House majority. There is a majority leader who acts as the day-to-day leader of the party, of the majority party in the Senate. They coordinate legislative strategy on the floor of the Senate. They have a whip structure, just like the House. The assistant majority leader is the majority whip. They assist the majority leader in coordinating day-to-day operations. Their primary job is to count votes for important floor votes by persuading legislators to support the bill. Sound familiar? It should, because it's identical to the structure in the House. Okay. Now, brace yourselves. The Senate minority has the exact same structure too. There's a Senate minority leader who leads the minority political party in the Senate. They coordinate the policy of the minority party against the policies of the majority party. Coordinating legislative strategy, yada, 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 yada. Okay. And now brace yourselves again. I'm glad you're sitting down because there's a whip structure too for the minority party. Okay. They assist the minority leader in the day-to-day operations. Okay. Their primary job, lining up the votes. Now, this is considerably harder in the Senate. All right. Because the Senate, the two senators from each state are much more independent and have a lot more individual power than a congressman does in the House. After all, as we discussed on Friday, the House members represent a district. They're much more parochial. They're much more tied to the people than these two senators who represents the interests of an entire state. All right, and that's a very important distinction to remember. U.S. senators generally have much more power individually than they do than a individual member of the House of Representatives. Consequently, remember that the power of the majority is much weaker in the Senate by design than in the House. All right. Remember, one chamber is the chamber of majority power. That's the House. The Senate is the chamber that protects the rights of the political minority through the filibuster and through its structures of how votes happen and all that. Again, the whip structure in the Senate is much tougher road to hoe then because the senators are much more independent than they are in the House. With that said, the structure, the structure of each chamber is the same. Okay, with the exception of the President Pro Tem in the Senate and the Speaker of the House in the House. Thank you for your attention. Please, I hope you took good notes. There's no Google Doc associated with this video. Just take good notes. Okay? You know, hopefully that'll help you out. And we'll have a note check on Monday, and I wish you all a fond farewell.